What do the most massive and horrifying accidents in America look like? How many wrecked cars are there? Dozens, hundreds. And what about the damage? I've gathered the most tragic and serious car accidents in the history of the USA, along with terrifying footage of their aftermath and eyewitness videos. Believe me, after watching this video, you'll think twice about obeying traffic rules like never before. And let's start with one of the most serious and dramatic accidents in U.S. history. Do you know what happened on December 11th, 1990, on the highway in Tennessee? Suddenly, on a stretch of road in McMinn County, dense fog descended and chaos ensued. Imagine, 99 cars just piled up into a huge heap. Because of the fog, drivers simply didn't have a chance to brake. A logical question arises. How did it all happen so quickly? This fog came from the settling ponds of the local Bowater paper factory, so many didn't react in time, trying to maintain their previous speed. The result was tragic. 12 people didn't survive, and 42 ended up in the hospital with various injuries. After this incident, special systems were installed on all roads in the USA to warn of poor visibility, to prevent such incidents in the future. Isn't it important to learn from mistakes? Here's another horrifying case. On January 9, 2015, on Interstate I-94 in Michigan, a real winter drama unfolded. Over 193 cars, including trucks, were involved in a massive car accident. The cause was heavy snowfall and black ice, turning the road into a real ice rink. Trucks were simply plowing through the neat rows of cars. Unfortunately, 2 people died and dozens were injured. The event halted traffic for several hours and created significant challenges for emergency services, who struggled to cope with the chaos and help the victims. In November 2002, on Interstate I-10 in Jefferson County, Texas, another tragic car accident occurred. Over 200 cars collided in one place, all because of thick fog. Just imagine the pileup of cars and people. As a result of this large-scale collision, 2 people died and dozens were injured. People ran to the shoulder and tried to warn drivers in advance to slow down and avoid the jam. Imagine the chaos on the road. But people worked as a team. Other drivers helped rescuers extract people from wrecked cars. That's why many victims were saved. But, as you'll understand further, no lessons were learned. But let's move on. I have more to show. In January 2012, on Interstate Y-75 in Alachua County, Florida, one of the most massive collisions in the state's history occurred. Over 40 cars were involved. The cause was poor visibility due to fog and smoke from forest fires. 11 people died and dozens were injured. Can you imagine how difficult it was to deal with this situation? After all, there was still a cloud of smoke around, making it difficult for the victims to breathe. Many rescuers and volunteers gathered at the scene, and with combined efforts, the jam was cleared within a few hours. But this is just part of that accident. In November 2018, on Interstate Y-35 near Fort Worth, Texas, its own drama unfolded. What happened? Over 70 cars collided due to slippery ice. Road services simply couldn't treat the highway after a sudden weather change, and people found themselves trapped in a horrific traffic jam consisting of wrecked cars. Although several people were injured, fortunately, there were no fatalities. I don't count cars. After all, life and health are much more important than money. And nobody canceled insurance. But luck doesn't always favor, unfortunately. In March 2013, on Interstate I-77 in Virginia, a serious car accident occurred. Dense fog once again caused a massive collision involving 95 cars. As a result of this chaos, 3 people died, and more than 25 were injured. Several became disabled for life. This collision went down in history as one of the largest for the state, causing serious traffic delays. Authorities had to mobilize significant rescue resources to deal with this accident. Even T. He Army was called in to clear the twisted cars. After this incident, mass weather warning broadcasts began. But if fog and ice are understandable, what about sand? In October 2017, on Interstate I-25 in New Mexico, a massive collision involving over 25 cars occurred. What happened? Definitely not black ice. The cause of this chaos was a sudden dust storm that sharply reduced visibility on the road. One strong gust of wind, and people were practically in a haze, unable to react to the speeds. As a result of this accident, 3 people died and more than 20 were injured. Road services spent a day clearing the aftermath. Integration. Even though insurance companies had to really step up their game with so many wrecked cars. By the way, what should you do if you're involved in a car accident in America? Where to seek help? Where to find a competent lawyer? How to get compensation if you simply don't have insurance? There are different situations. The company Accident America helped its clients receive $21 million in compensation. Here they will definitely answer all your questions. Link in the description. Here's another similar case. In February 2021, on Interstate I-35 West in Fort Worth, Minnesota, a very large car accident occurred, involving over 130 cars. Think about these numbers. It all happened because of ice covering the road, literally with a thick layer in just a quarter of an hour, like a chocolate bar with icing. Unfortunately, it wasn't without casualties. As you can see in the footage, 6 people died and more than 65 were injured. 10 children were affected. There might have been more casualties if people hadn't started blocking the road themselves further up the traffic, preventing other cars from getting involved in this accident. But it's not always nature's fault. Look at these shots. In April 2019, on Interstate I-70 near Lakewood, Colorado, a serious collision occurred. Over 28 cars, including trucks, were involved in the accident due to a driver's violation of traffic rules, who lost control and took out several cars. It would have been fine, but it was a truck driver who simply crushed other cars and ultimately exploded. Horrifying, isn't it? You can see a lucky person in the shots when an uncontrollable truck passes by him. But others were less fortunate. 4 people died and more than 10 were injured. Label 11. Interstate I-64, Virginia 2011. And here, as it has happened before, dense fog. But just look at these horrible shots. What happened? A serious mass car accident occurred. Drivers didn't have time to react to the suddenly descending fog, and more than 50 cars crashed into each other. As you can understand from the footage, it wasn't without casualties. 3 people couldn't survive, and more than 20 were injured. This accident seriously disrupted traffic in the state, causing huge traffic jams and million-dollar losses to the economy. After all, it took several days to clear the car pileup, completely paralyzing the highway. In March 2019, on Interstate I-44 in Missouri, a huge collision involving over 100 cars occurred. The cause was extremely adverse weather conditions, dense fog mixed with rain, creating dangerous conditions on the road. As a result of the accident, 1 person died and dozens were injured. Can you imagine how difficult it was to deal with the consequences of such a massive accident? It even required calling in military equipment for dismantling. Emergency services made colossal efforts to assist the victims and restore order on the road. Look at these shots. In March 2015, on Highway 165 in Kentucky, a real battle of the elements took place. Over 60 cars faced each other with an icy road surface, leading to a massive collision. 3 people died and more than 30 were injured. How much chaos there was. The road was blocked, traffic was completely stopped. Emergency response services made huge efforts to clear the road and help the victims. Unfortunately, the authorities didn't react in time to the sudden cold snap and treat the road, leading to casualties. In November 2008, on Interstate Y90 in Washington, a serious car accident involving more than 60 cars also occurred. Heavy snow and black ice turned the road into a trap. Several trucks effectively blocked the road, preventing even emergency services from reaching the accident. Other cars just crashed into them. Horrible. As a result of the collision, 2 people died and more than 40 were injured. It was a serious challenge for the state's rescue services. In December 2009, on Interstate I-80 in Pennsylvania, another mass collision involving more than 50 cars occurred. The truck driver didn't react to the fog and decided not to reduce speed, not noticing other cars beneath him. As a result of the tragic accident, 2 people died and dozens were injured. And I'm not even talking about the financial damage. And if you think such incredible accidents happened before, and now the alert systems work better, you are sorely mistaken. You can see it firsthand in these shots. In March 2023, on Interstate I-81 in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, a huge car accident involving more than 80 cars occurred. What was the reason? Yes, as always, a sudden snowstorm and black ice, which drivers simply didn't expect. Although the authorities sent out alerts to the phones of state residents, no one reacted to it because you still have to go to work anyway. 3 people died and dozens were injured. Not convinced? Here's another example. In November 2023, on Interstate I-5 in Kern County, California, another dramatic scene unfolded. More than 70 cars were damaged. Fog is simply impossible to predict to the minute. It can suddenly appear and dissipate just as suddenly. That's what happened on this highway. People simply didn't have time to react. Some were hit right on the shoulder. Unfortunately, it wasn't without casualties. As a result of the accident, 4 people died, and more than 40 were injured. And here are the shots from Ohio, where in January 2013, on Interstate I-75, over 70 cars collided. Here it wasn't fog, but heavy snowfall and black ice that created dangerous conditions on the road, leading to such a massive car accident. Unfortunately, as a result of the accident, 2 people died and more than 20 were injured. And now take a look at these shots. A real mess of trucks and cars. Horrible, isn't it? This massive car accident occurred in April 2015 on Interstate Y80 in Wyoming. Over 60 cars were involved. Heavy snowfall and black ice turned the road into a skating rink, leading to a massive car accident. As a result of the tragedy, 2 people died and dozens were injured. This incident significantly complicated traffic, causing huge traffic jams and requiring maximum efforts from emergency services as they couldn't even reach the victims. Clearing the road and providing assistance became a real challenge for everyone involved in mitigating the consequences of this terrible car accident. Over 70 cars collided due to a sudden snowstorm and the formation of black ice on the road. This happened in February 2022 on Interstate I-57 in Illinois. Hundreds of cars were stranded on the highway, and rescuers had to set up feeding and warming stations for the accident participants. Unfortunately, 2 people died, and dozens of others were injured. It was only possible to clear the car pileups and clean the road for traffic after a couple of days. Can you imagine? By the way, the storm was warned in advance, but not everyone reacted to it. And these are shots of how a traffic jam with hundreds of accidents forms during black ice. This is Interstate I-80 in Iowa, which in March 2022 became the site of a massive major road incident. Over 60 cars were involved in an accident caused by a snowstorm and lack of traction on the road. 3 people died and dozens were injured. And finally, just look at these emotional shots. Real madness that simply cannot be stopped. In December 2022, on Interstate I-95 in Virginia, a snowstorm and black ice began, creating extremely dangerous conditions on the road. Cars virtually had no traction on the road, and for several miles they could simply slide along the ice. Terrible, because as a result of this accident, 4 people died and dozens were injured. Not to mention the 100 damaged cars. The saddest part is that even a warning sign about slippery roads was installed, but due to the storm, it was simply not visible. As you can see, traffic rules are written on other people's mistakes. It's clear about black ice or fog, but observing distance and speed limits has never been canceled, and many simply ignore road signs warning of possible problems on specific road sections. And as you understand, in vain. Thanks for watching and be sure to subscribe to my channel.